Recording. And then I'm going to switch. Okay. All right. Well, hello, everybody, and thank you for coming to Igniting Your Spark, a reading of Yellow Arrow Vignettes 2023 series. In addition to this event being recorded, we'd just like to remind you to mute your microphone for the majority of the event so our authors can shine and so that feedback isn't heard. My name is Siobhan McKenna, and I'm the managing editor of the Yellow Arrow Vignette series. I began working with Yellow Arrow in 2020 and have grown with the organization from there. I am also an intensive care ICU nurse and am currently located in Seattle, but I'll be headed to New York City in the next couple of weeks. We'd love to see where you all are coming from and something you're looking forward to this fall. So if you're joining us as a reader, we'd love for you to put where you are, what you're looking forward to, and any feedback that you have for the reader, for the authors of their pieces, readers during the event. We love cheering each other on. So our series aligned with our 2023 yearly value, which was Spark. And we picked this because as writers, it can be really difficult to articulate the reasons. We're creating a roadmap to navigate, a word map to navigate the beauty, guilt, loss, and nuance in this world, but we want to do it anyway, the sentiment of why we write. And so our authors today were able to do that. A little bit about Yellow Arrow. Yellow Arrow is a publishing company based in Baltimore that supports and inspires writers identifying as women through publication and access to the literary arts. Historically, women's voices have been underrepresented in literature, and our organization really aims to elevate those voices and stories through our programming and publications. Some of our programs include workshops, open mic nights, and a writer's virtual residency. Recently, we published Black Girl Magic and Other Elixirs by Chantel Hinton Hill. And on October 10th, Cassie Primo Steele's book, Swimming in Gilead, will be published. That's a collection of poems that deal with the themes of identity, relationship, and trauma, as well as healing. We also have several upcoming workshops, including a restorative writing workshop tomorrow at 8 p.m. So we hope you join us and look into some of our other events. Thank you again to all of our speakers and audience members for showing your support for Yellow Arrow. We're going to start off this event with first a video from one of our writers who is located in Greece. She sent us a video ahead of time. And then following that video, we will have Angela Acosta read, and then the rest of the live reading will continue. So I'm going to pull up Lizzie's reading now, and I'm going to share my screen so all of you guys can see her beautiful reading.
Maxwell, a poet and author living in Artemis, Greece. The theme of Spark reminded me of how we are at the behest of this nebulous, hard to pin down spirit of the times that's ever changing, but always around us. But in those golden moments where we can feel tapped into it, we can run with that spark of creative energy. This is my poem, Zeitgeist. It's fickle. Like smoke through a sieve, it sifts and sorts, scanning for perfection unnamed. And in submitting, success is sought, and the gavel is brought down by words, by an entity, by spirit, by energy, untouchable, unformed, undefined. It rules our thoughts and minds, wisping below and within us. It is always, always the unseen cloud of confusion, the electric current of decision. It taps us on our shoulders, zaps us in our dreams and waking thoughts. It asks us, does this fit? Fit what? Its baseless needs and wants. We are beholden. We call it free will. Unspoken, our needs are written for us by the Zeitgeist. Thank you.
All right, well, that was great. Our next reader is going to be Angela. So if Angela, you can take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Angela Acosta. I am in Davidson, North Carolina, in the ancestral homeland of the Catawba, and I'm a visiting assistant professor of Hispanic Studies at Davidson College. Something I'm looking forward to this fall are Halloween movies and some spooky decorations. The piece I'll be reading tonight is kind of a question and pushback against the need to always give such detailed histories of women existing in history, but also the spark that they produce in me as someone who studies and teaches them and the inspiration I've learned. So it's a little bit of the mix of feelings, but also a lot of gratitude. So this piece is titled A Centennial for Herstory. I didn't have to, but I remembered you. Look, I learned a whole language just to pronounce your name in Spanish, to read the stories you left for us, to live the lives you couldn't. I translated your dreams back into English, and maybe along the way, I found my own. In other poems, in other places, I listed your names, las poetisas, poets, Carmen, Ernestina, Concha, las artistas, artists, Maruja, Josefina, Beli. I could go on, in step with the ebbs and flows of avant-garde currents and poems by the ocean, but here I sit and marvel at the passing of a century. Thank you.
Angela, thank you so much. I love how in your poem you really you comment on the other poets, and I think that really just elevates your poem, and you can really feel all of the energy flowing through it. So thank you. Our next poet's going to be Katherine. All right, our next reader is going to be Katherine. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I just got myself off mute. My name is Katherine Shehadeh. Something I'm looking forward to for fall is hopefully the weather starts to improve. It is, I'm sure everybody's experiencing it, but we're experiencing it a lot and here in Miami, and yeah, hopefully it gets a little bit better. Just a little bit about my poem. It's kind of recounting a lot of like weird kind of phenomenon that all sort of just happened in like 1 week's time, with my son, and a lot of questions he's asking me. He's 6, and how everything kind of seemed like it was all fitting together strangely. My son wants to know what happened before the universe, and today we learned.
Hey, Katherine, sorry to interrupt. Are you able to get closer to the microphone?
Oh, maybe it's down too much. Is that better?
Yes, that's better. And just start at the top.
Okay. My son wants to know what happened before the universe, and today we learned the universe was created by fire, an explosion tinier than a tiny pinprick. And the universe, it's expanding all the time, stretching this way, pulling that, until a moment when it isn't, and it gets smaller and tighter until it turns back into a tiny little thing, tinier than a pinprick. Universe crunching and pressing like the trash compactor we never managed to get fixed in the 90s, except it's actually working because God fixes everything. And then again and again, and it's all swirling around you all the time. Like when you have kids and the dryer is always on its spin cycle, and you're running the dishwasher twice a week instead of once, and you have to buy new spoons because one set of spoons isn't enough for your family anymore. But one day you don't, it's not, and suddenly there's so many spoons, and the dishwasher smells like hot trash because no one has run it for the whole week, and you should be happy right there in the place where you are at every right now. But now I have to answer my son's question, which he wants to ask God, who he isn't sure exists, unlike Santa, whose fire red suit can be seen, which is to say, he must be real. Unlike who just got too sick, who he says no longer is. But there are no easy answers for the dawn of existence. And so we must turn to YouTube to learn how to pray Salah and to explain the Big Bang, because no one can see a thing. So
I love that. I love the imagery. I know when we were going through there's too many spoons and then not enough spoons was something that we were all talking about. So you just really capture everything in that happens in the mundanity. It's beautiful. So thank you for sharing.
thank you.
Our next reader is going to be Kellie. Kellie, take it away.
Hi, my name is Kellie Brown. I live in East Tennessee. I'm a violinist and a conductor, and I teach at Milligan University. I'm looking forward for fall to make my display on the front porch with my mom's and my Halloween themed pillows and all of those things. Mine is an essay. The essay is called The Weight of Words on Keeping a Commonplace Book. And because of time constraints, I'll just be reading some selected passages. I first encountered the term commonplace book while reading Madeleine L'Engle's book, Walking on Water, which offers her profound and at times provocative ideas about creativity and spirituality. The volume also reveals much about her process as a thinker and writer. In an early chapter, almost as an aside, she explains the significant role throughout her life of a commonplace book and differentiates it from the more academic method of documentation via citations and footnotes. I curate my notebook with the same collect-all repository approach that Anne Lamott does with her index cards. In her well-known book on writing, Bird by Bird, she devotes an entire chapter to index cards. She confesses that she sews them throughout the rooms of her house, including the bathroom, with pencils and pens at the ready to capture thoughts and ideas. An avid walker, she makes sure to tuck one in her pocket, having too often fallen victim to the forgotten observation or solution. I share a similar fear of not only forgetting the brilliant idea I had while walking to the refrigerator, but also of not having the perfect material for my latest project. So whether I'm writing an essay or a poem, I reach for my commonplace book, relishing the texture of the lined paper and the rustle of the turned pages. This is the closest I will come to being an archaeologist who digs through artifacts in search of an illuminating discovery. Much in my book qualifies as quotable wisdom from others, both fiction and nonfiction, spoken and written. But my commonplace book also serves as a storehouse of words. You see, I love words in their singularity, whether obscure or common. Handwritten vocabulary lists fill page after page. Any one word might spark the creation of an entire process and project, such as the word tenderize, which inspired an essay about revisiting the wonders of my grandmother's kitchen with its rusty tin of meat tenderizer used to treat my childhood bee stings. When I turn to my curated dictionary, I resist the urge to skim quickly. I read each word slowly, reverently, the weight and sound forming the chant of my writing ritual. I enter catacombs, hermitages, gulags, trenches, reliquaries, scriptoria. I encounter mudlarks, hobgoblins, anchorites, contrarians, emissaries, hecklers, usurpers, scriveners. I experience witching hours, salad days, twilight years, doomsday clocks, nuclear winters. I examine worry stones, fault lines, skeleton keys, vapor trails, ghost ships, bottle trees. I emerge whittled, curdled, bewitched, desiccated, shrouded. When I exit the world of my commonplace book, I can then examine how the journey has enlightened me, transformed me. I am like Bernard, Virginia Woolf's deeply introspective character from her novel The Waves. A connoisseur of words, Bernard declares, I am made and remade constantly. Different people draw different words from me. Yes, that is the mystery, the power, the weight of words. Thank you.
Thank you, Kellie. And I never heard of a commonplace book until your essay. I have a million sticky notes and several different notebooks. So this is a much better way to sort all the ideas you come across that are inspiring. So thank you for introducing me and at least a few others to that. Our next reader is going to be Laurel Maxwell, reading A Full Life.
Hello, my name is Laurel, and I'm from Santa Cruz, California. And I'm looking forward to this, I love the crisp fall mornings. So that's what I'm sort of looking forward to, and they're already turning here in Santa Cruz. And let me get my poem up. Okay, this is A Full Life. The idea of it is ludicrous at best. To be tied to a computer chair with a neck turning into a turtle, peeking daily at a screen which pulls you into a whirlpool of numbers, merging onto spreadsheets, how the only thing which keeps you in that chair is a pension, that your life is measured in vacation days and dollars, growing by mere percentage points until your back is too stiff and your ankle has given out, where the remainder of your days will be on the couch watching National Geographic, when instead we could be visiting those places, streams where salmon know how to spawn, and birds are louder than airplanes in their rush overhead, where there is a calendar of days with nothing to do but put toes in the sand. I once lived on an island for 2 years. The waves washed up trash like unwanted jewels. Once I fell out of a kayak, flew feet first down the rapids of a river in Idaho, the water covering me like a second skin, the refreshing coolness until fear made me shiver, the current always stronger than our ability to swim, its gravitational pull powerful as some woman's maternal instincts, unabated desire to have, hold, create a life outside oneself, a life that breathes and hums and sings, as the wind whispers between tree branches and fungi send signals through their underground network of Morse code. And for a moment, we realize what it must have felt like to dance among the cosmos, understand the power of fire to warm and destruct, to behold an other than our own greatness in the smallness of the universe, to fold ourselves like a paper crane into the creases of delicate existence. Thank you.
Ooh, it is such a good poem. There's so many lines that stick out, so much color, the fungi sending Morse code, the water like a second skin. It's gorgeous. Wants you to leap in to really grasping life. So thank you. Our next reader is going to be Rebecca Spears, reading Breaking the Surface.
Hello. Yes, I'm Rebecca Spears, and I have an essay called Breaking the Surface that I'll be reading from, and I had to abridge it some to make it fit into the time slot, but I'm in East Texas, and I'm a visiting professor at Stephen F. Austin State University, and I teach creative writing classes there. So it's kind of nice to be able to do that. I wanted to say hello to a couple of my friends who joined us. Thanks, Margot and Priscilla. And for fall, yes, I'm excited because our temperatures have already fallen, but it'll be nice to walk through the Arboretum when the leaves are changing colors. So I'm looking forward to that. Excuse me. So Breaking the Surface. After my 6th grade year, my father and mother organized a family trip to New Mexico. This was quite a surprise. My dad, Big D, often seemed world-weary and as if he wanted to stay home tinkering in the garage, fixing gutters, or smoking his pipe and reading. My mother, on the other hand, almost always loved a good adventure, and I can imagine that she was the one who packed the car, made the sandwiches, and managed who would sit where. Then early one June morning, our family of 6, my older brother Craig, younger brother Mark, baby brother David, myself, and my mom and dad, began our trip from Dallas, Texas, to the town of Roswell, New Mexico. Big D drove us nearly 300 miles through the West Texas heat, hardly stopping until we reached the land of enchantment, another 100 miles away. The week-long trip fired my imagination then. I'd never even been out of Texas. And our trip to the bottomless lakes on the eastern escarpment along the Pecos River continues to stand out today. One reason is because images have always captured my imagination, and the spare desert landscape was strange to me with its cacti, silvery cottonwood trees, creosote bushes, and grama grasses. Naming things also fascinated me then: bottomless lakes, piñons, diamondback, and still fascinates me now. And the word bottomless sounded otherworldly to me. The world as I knew it then was solid, tangible. A bottomless lake might be a chance to step off the edge of the world. This idea made my heart pound with a thrill. Recently, after digging through some geologic facts to understand more about these lakes, I guessed that we had visited Lea Lake, one of the 9 bottomless lakes. Once I caught my first glimpse of the lake, fear and attraction lit up every nerve in my body, and I gazed in amazement at the shimmering turquoise water, high craggy cliffs, and endless blue sky. I'd never encountered such gorgeous water and a dangerous chance to test my swimming skills. Craig, Mark, and I immediately flew out of the car and jumped in the water to swim and play. Soon I was paddling out to the farthest rope boundary, not so far from shore, where I discovered I couldn't easily touch the bottom. The lake stirred my creativity. Growing up, I had wanted to be an artist and often spent my spare time sketching. By high school, I realized that I probably didn't have enough talent for that. At one time, I wanted to be a dancer, but my mother didn't want me to live that kind of life. So I found creative ways to get into trouble, like perfecting my mother's handwriting to write notes for skipping school, climbing the public swimming pool fence to swim with friends at midnight, experimenting with magic mushrooms. And by the time I became an adult, I had all but given up on the creative life. After high school, I studied at the University of Texas, got married in my 20s, then pursued a master's degree in English, graduating with the degree, a son, and a daughter by my early 30s. In my mid-30s, we would add a 3rd child to our family. All my creative energy went into raising kids and encouraging my spouse's goals, except I had been unexpectedly hired as a writer and editor at a publishing company. This new job allowed me to discover the pleasures of writing and to reconnect with my imagination. So while editing, raising children, managing a busy household, and helping my entitled husband, I also began attending poetry readings and learning about the liveliness of contemporary poetry. Soon I took a risk and dove into creative writing, even though I feared I might fail. I began meeting regularly with other writers to share and critique our writing. From there, I found the nerve to submit some finished pieces. Now, years later, with children grown and husband ditched, I've written on many topics from a variety of angles. Even so, I can fall into a funk when my imagination lags. What nearly always gets me out of the doldrums and back into my writing is to leave the house and walk. On these walks, the memory of swimming at Leo Lake returns to remind me that I still want to explore, break through the surface of things and plumb the depths, even when I don't know where rock bottom is, even though I can never quite shake a fear of falling or failing. Curiosity still drives me to see where I can go when I open my laptop and pull up a blank page.
Ooh, thank you,
Thanks.
Rebecca. Such an awesome piece, and really speaks to finding your spark amidst everything else that was going on, and somehow you were still able to fall into it and write this beautiful piece, and you've continued to do that throughout your life. So you are an inspiration. Thank you for sharing. Our next reader is going to be Lisa, reading Piano Lessons from the Other Side of 60.
Thank you. I'm Lisa. I'm in Denver. I'm a nursing professor, and one of the things I'm looking forward to fall is socks and all things pumpkin. The inspiration for this essay was a 35-year desire to learn piano, finally taking lessons with my adult son. And for the interest of time, this is an excerpt from that piece. Piano Lessons from the Other Side of 60. Up a flight of creaky stairs, we find room 202. I realize it is a repurposed Sunday school room now dedicated to a spiritual practice of another kind. The door is closed, but through the tiny sliver of a window, I see our teacher sitting at an old upright. Donning his mask, he ushers us in. Guiding us each to our own piano, we pull out a bench and sit. Ever the overachieving student, I extract my legal pad, pen poised at the ready, as he inquires as to why we're here and want to learn. I'm not ready to share my childhood dreams just yet, so I say something inane like, oh, I've always wanted to learn, hoping he doesn't see past my inadequate facade of expectations. Learning the keys with middle C as our anchor, we are taught cute visualizations to remember the positions that correspond to locations in a storybook house. The first ivory is F for the front yard, followed by G for the garage, the A for attic, and lastly, B for backyard. Another 62-year-old might find this foundational way to remember too juvenile, but for me, it works. He uses mnemonics to help us learn the scales, like good burritos don't fall apart or all cows eat grass, and although catchy, they only serve to make me hungry. During college, I'd never understood why one would spend time learning mnemonics, because you have to memorize them and what they stand for. I'd rather use my brain power to just remember what I needed to memorize in the first place. After going through the scales, we play a few bars of Ode to Joy, and I am hooked. Being able to play parts of an actual song, one of my favorites to boot, brings immense joy. Time becomes a fugue. I can't tell you the day of the week at that moment or even a single problem weighing on my mind. Everything falls away and I'm playing the piano. Maybe I am my father's daughter after all. A lifetime of family lore reminds me of how he could play by ear, never taking a lesson, playing for nothing but delight. It was always hoped that I would fill the Ronald McDonald-sized shoes after he died. Or I guess I hoped I would fill after he died. Unspoken hope. I tried taking lessons twice several decades before with no genetic talent identified by either myself or teachers, and I quickly gave it up. Why try again? Why now? Did I really think that some latent musical genius had finally mutated my symphonic gene and I would be able to play? I was about to find out. For 35 years, I've wanted to take piano lessons, and here I am playing a tiny snippet of Beethoven's Ninth. A kinship I had never known with my father feels palpable. I might not prove to be his musical prodigy in execution, but I was in the joy of it. 2 hours pass in moments. I walk through the dark to my car on a puff of air. After ordering a keyboard on Amazon to practice, I start Googling, will a baby grand fit in my small house? Many yes hits, complete with floor plans and measurements. 10 o'clock at night, and I'm moving dining room furniture, tape measure in hand to try and figure this out. Next, I find a piano store and peruse the used baby grands, lusting after them like pics on a dating app. Could I give up traveling for the better part of a year to afford one? Why, yes, I could, especially with COVID continuing to nip at our heels. One piano lesson, just 2 bars of a classic symphony, and I'm wiping out my bucket list to make room for a baby grand, even thinking about buying a bigger house if I must. I can visualize sitting on a mahogany bench tufted with tapestry, fingers perched above the keys, playing Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, my father's favorite piece.
Gorgeous, Lisa. It's funny. It's determined, like your determination shows through throughout the piece, and tells us it's never too late to pick up something that we're curious about. It was perfect for the series. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
All right. Our next reader is going to be Anne with her poem, Dear Planet, coming all the way from the Netherlands at 2 a.m.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Anne van Wijgerden. I'm English, but I'm married to a Dutch guy, hence my name being unpronounceable, even actually to me. We're in the Netherlands at the moment, but we actually live in the Philippines. And sorry if that's already confused you, never mind. I'm going to read I was going to say autumn. Yeah, sorry, you say fall. I'm really looking forward to fall because, like someone already mentioned, the colors. And in fact, where we're staying right now, a couple of days ago, some of the bushes just seemed to change color in one day, and that golden brown amidst the green is so beautiful in the autumn sunlight, and I'm already experiencing that. So, looking forward to more of that. This poem was written not so long ago. And it's in a sense autobiographical, and just woken up from a great night's sleep and an amazing dream, and I had to capture it. It's like you see an amazing scene and you take your camera out or your cell phone and you want to capture the scene. And this poem reminds me of how thankful I am to poetry. That it's a way of capturing something in words. Not that I did a good job of it, but for me, I never wanted to forget the feeling and the scenes of that dream, and just a sense of awesomeness that came over me, and in a sense has never left me since having that dream. It sounds a bit mystic. It wasn't, but it was just a dream that seemed to change my life, and I wanted to somehow not forget it. And so this is the short poem I wrote afterwards. It's called Dear Planet. Last night, I dreamed of oceans unboundaried by horizons. I saw land masses likewise in all their luminous verdancy, length and breadth. But it was the waters captivating me in aqua hues, light scattering diamantine, undulating surfaces, their expanses exhaling, inhaling, exhaling. In my dream, I saw their vastness completely, not in the sense of how far, how wide, no measurements, no delineations of map, but omniscient like knowing of being, a fusion of interconnection and personhood, making me blush now as one harried ant in the presence of angels. An early coffee while the waters sing, a world beneath the waves.
Well, Anne, I don't know what you're talking about because you captured that dream beautifully. Your word choice, luminous verdancy, scattering diamantine, undulating surfaces, all of it. We were there in the dream, so no worries. It is absolutely beautiful and captivating. So thank you. All right, our next reader is going to be Tijanna O. Eaton reading her piece. So take it away. And her eyes fell from the scale.
Hi, yeah, I'm Tijanna Eaton. I'm in Oakland, California, and I'm looking forward to bacon. In January of 1990, I shot my first fix of heroin with the help of a close but secretly addicted friend. By April, I was hooked and had developed a daily habit. By December, I started mixing coke with heroin and lost my job and housing soon after. Eventually, I lost custody of my daughter. Then, I was arrested 12 times in 3 years. I wrote a book about it called Bolt Cutters, and this excerpt is about what it took to write one of the chapters. Chapter 7, And Her Eyes Fell from the Scale, is the longest and most grueling section. Out of the 12, it was the last to come together. It wasn't the hardest chapter to write. That distinction is reserved for the one where I almost get beaten to death in a stairwell and, in a separate incident, chased to within an inch of my life. But chapter 7 still took the most emotional toll. Coincidentally, it is a turning point in my addiction and the centerpiece of my book. An ebb, a flexion, a nadir, a hatchling. It's the chapter where one fleshed out idea sets off 2 electrical impulses that send out 4 pulsating spores, each clamoring for full exploration. It is unruly, a hungry dumpster fire, a cold hand and flint at the end of a day's exhausting trek. It had requirements and demands. Suddenly, the chapter was an Ouroboros, the proverbial snake eating its own tail. And just like this never-ending snake, I felt like I was caught in a cycle that I couldn't escape. I needed help from my people because the more I worked on it, the more circuitous it became, the molasses spilling onto each page, sinking in between words, and making my brain stickier. But the process of receiving feedback was another serpent of a project. 2 opportunities for 2 sets of colleagues to review the chapter turned into 3 meetings over 2 seasons plus 1 weekend, 2 and 3 months in between that were required for me to digest and integrate their feedback. 1 allotted month had turned into 6. On my own, I could not figure out how to reorganize or improve the chapter. It was a heavy lift for one person. However, with 2 teams totaling 17 people, I restructured the entire chapter by breaking it down into 29 parts. Even though that was just as overwhelming, I finally felt like there was a path forward and the writing flowed more easily because the structure was already in place and I was just fleshing it out. The Ouroboros began to stir and writhe, stiffly at first, uncertain. My team pointed out that I'd started with a story, but the end didn't appear until 30 pages later. Bringing that story together helped the snake loosen its whorl. I grouped disjointed thoughts, deleted repetitious text, and killed precious darlings. I began feeling hopeful that it would eventually release its own tail, stop suffocating itself, and stretch out into its full length. Whenever I'd open the document and not know where to start, I'd pick a new piece of feedback and work from there. Motivation turned into momentum, which fed the structure of the story. Slowly and diligently, the tail emerged from the snake's mouth. Finally, animated by their generous and generative support, the chapter was complete. The Ouroboros had uncoiled fully, metamorphosing into a dragon.
Ugh,
Thank you.
so incredible. And the fact that your piece, you have an entire book. And I think as, you know, as someone who's looking at someone who's published a book, you're thinking, oh, this person did that. Wow, they're, you know, they don't think about the struggle. And you writing about the actual meta experience of how difficult it was so important to this series about how difficult it can be as a writer to put your words into the world and how there is other people that are helping you. There are other people along, and you just captured that beautifully in this snippet. So thank you for sharing. Okay, so our last live reader is going to be Suzanna reading her piece, The Inheritance of Women. And then after that, we'll have one final video from one of our writers, Mandira, who couldn't make it, but is sending a video in from India. So Suzanna, take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Suzanna Baca, and I am dialing in from Iowa, from farm country. And one of the things I'm looking forward to in fall is the changing of the seasons. It's harvest time here, which I always feel is very symbolic. And next week, I'm going to be going to a writing workshop up in Northwest Iowa near a beautiful lake. And the 3-hour drive through the turning fields is, I think, going to be a real highlight and a time for reflection. So it is my honor to follow all of you. I have been so inspired by all of your poetry and your thoughts about Spark. The poem that I'm going to read for you is part of a series, a chapbook that I started writing about a day after my best friend was diagnosed with terminal cancer. A lot of words just started flooding out of me. I really started thinking about what I have received from many women who are in my life, some who I know, some who came before me, and some who I've never met but just heard about or read about, and the mark that they had on my life. This one is about my maternal grandmother, and it is called The Inheritance of Women, which is the title of the book that I'm also working on. When you died, we packed up your old white farmhouse, put your life into boxes and bins. Nothing I own is worth much, you'd said, but still, you'd lovingly labeled cherished items for the kids and grandkids. The blue depression glass goblet, the good china edged in gold, the stained glass nativity set. There was talk behind closed doors of the cropland, the barn, the house, the bank deposits and investments you'd carefully made by scrimping and saving over the years, the assets, they called them. But I snuck into the kitchen and intercepted the giveaway pile, quietly filling a cardboard box with faded woven potholders burned on the corners, battered tin measuring cups with tiny handles, each nesting in the other, bent tin measuring spoons held together on a thin metal loop, the pastry blender with the faded redwood handle and the wobbly tines, the long, smooth wooden rolling pin, and your faded blue apron. When I cut butter and dip flour and measure a teaspoon of this or that, it doesn't matter what sorrows are spinning me downward, because I hear the warmth of your voice, feel the spark of your warmth. I can see your strong, crooked fingers holding the round, fluted cookie cutter. I can feel your breath and hear you laughing, seated at the old metal kitchen table with the red vinyl chairs. I can feel you in my own hands.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It really speaks to how we're inspired by our loved ones, and you put that into words beautifully. Thank you. And someone put it out in the chat. We have one of our other writers here, which is great. It's a nice surprise. So I just messaged Odie, and she is going to read, they are going to read their poem, A Match to Follow.
Sorry, I had to tell my roommates to be quiet. Hi, I'm Odie. I am finishing my senior year of undergrad at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, where I'm studying film and creative writing. This piece was just inspired by like how I started writing when I was just a little kid. I started writing really young, just have always been interested in stories. So this was just like how that spark started. So, a match to follow. When I was 5, I drew a map in my mind of the world I wanted to see. I scoured encyclopedias and thesauruses for the words and ideas I was to use as bricks. The dog ate it instead of my homework and vomited it up in the sandbox. I dug out the pieces and glued them back together. It grew and split into 2, like the bacteria staining my skin. It performed mitosis until I had a galaxy in my chest. It swirled in my face, black holes opening in my guts, and stars imploding in my veins. I tried to burn it off my tongue, but it only grew like water thrown on a grease fire. I used my blood to draw maps on the walls, carve cities and landmarks into dead trees, cheered for the imagination, the spark that consumed me until I was nothing but a map to the make-believe. I listened to the people in my head, recorded flavor and stories like a historian. I filled notebooks with my findings, covered myself in progress so I would not explode. I was always on the edge of self-destruction, one misplaced match away from turning myself into a witch tied to a stake. I hid myself away and kept my work secret, finding relief from the heat and the scratch of the pen. I breathed in ink more than air. Same as nothing, I became fueled by my own creation. I carved a path to insanity with paper and pen. I found a home there, like an octopus in the rocks. Watching, unseen, morphing with the tides, I became a god at 5.
Oof. Please do not hide yourself in your work away, Odie. It is amazing. I especially loved the mitosis until I had a galaxy in my chest. It is just such a beautiful poem about being inspired and putting the pen to paper because you must. So thank you. For our last reader, I'm going to pull up the video that Mandira sent us. So if you just give me one moment, I will share my screen with all of you. Okay.
I'm very thrilled to. Hello, everyone. I'm Mandira Pattnaik from India. I'm very thrilled to be with you today as I read Reasons for a Pragmatic Way to Approach the Blankness on the Wall for SPARK, Vignette series, Yellow Arrow Publishing. The theme really resonated with me because I'm a woman, I'm a writer living in India, and really what sparks my writing led me to re-examine my writing process. And as a published author of about 300 pieces, it really sort of made me think what made me write every time. It's not regular, it's not disciplined, but still certain incidents, certain themes resonate with me. And though I don't write every day, I love to spend my time as and when I can write. So here's the piece. I would be fending off some regular monkey attack atop a temple, or talking about common weather in the tropics, or bringing some analogy between adults in their 20s and bikinis without borders. But if I was not ranting about how miserable the day was, how inappropriate a Twitter post, and then the moment when away from those shadows, I'd be plucking rays to read the sunshine. Because several things to write about: a wall and a fly and a cobweb, a nail clipper, a toothbrush, a tube of gum, all done, nothing dusted. Where the sons were before they went to school, where the dirty linen waits to be washed, where the broom rests and the floor gazes up to be combed clean, where the spiders have abundant dwellings for me to relegate. Because it feels to hammer a word. Note, to be honest, there's an L missing, because I shouldn't make myself too obvious. I'd like to hammer the world, but I'll settle for hammering a sentence to oblivion and onwards, get lost, or fix a fuse. At least then I'd be useful. But wait, a fuse was a poet's muse. Don't dampen it. Or when I am at home, it would seem I'm resting all day in bed. I'm fed, burp, low and lazy, and rising only when the husband comes home from work. Like a deeply welded, nay, wedded, miserable woman who sits all day, or so it would appear. And wow, she at least warms dinner. because it's erratic, like a fragment of a tale of a memoir, and there'll be pictures tucked away in family albums to write about a tsunami of remembrances. If I'm not listening to, absent-minded, to an annoying verbal storm lived beam on TV and called a debate, but it will be one edgy and edgeless essay, a tale about the French in the sunshine, or how their Prime Minister Manuel Valls argued the naked breasts pointing to Marianne, a symbol of France, were more representative of France than a headscarf, and like Providence, it would be watching a couple dancing with the Eiffel Tower in the background from a video YouTube recommended. When curtains drawn, I'm bored in the afternoon. Because it may soon be about things that matters, things that refuse to die, things I refuse to bury, or something that was lost, maybe or maybe not, about why I planted what I did in the backyard the spring morning, or the glacier that's melting in a picture in the newspaper, about the coriander I washed in the sink. The injuries I'll inflict on another, isn't that obvious, with due apologies, by some collage of thoughts masquerading like an unknown gravity? Thank you.
So that was our final piece. And I love that Mandira has a stream of conscious way that she talks about everything that distracts a person when they're trying to write. I'm sure all of you have experienced that. I know I have. So I hope that we can all harness those distractions like she did and put them into our own piece. Our own pieces. It was so, as Annie said, she's incredible to hear all of your voices. And I hope we see you submitting or at our workshops in the future. We have a upcoming journal publication in Blazon soon to be released in, I think, a month. And a couple chapbooks, as I mentioned, coming out. There's always things around the corner at Yellow Arrow. So I hope everybody continues to follow us and send us your information as well. We love to support our authors, have you write blogs for us, and keep us updated. And thank you for all of our for all of the audience members who came and listened. Thank you so much. So if everyone wants to unmute and say goodbye and thank you, or anything in the comments. It was wonderful.
Thank you,
Great.
everybody.
Thank you for hosting.
Yeah, thank you, Siobhan. Yeah. Thank you.
It was great. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you, guys. All right. Bye-bye.